Okay, we're going to start off with a commercial. Today's Mishlei has been brought to you by Mishlei of Rabbeinu Yonah. Okay, I wanted to, since we're doing Rabbeinu Yonah today, and I realized I don't think I've said this. So if you're going to buy any copy of Mishlei, definitely get the Torah because that has all the Rishonim. But if you're going to get another copy of Mishlei, get this Rabbeinu Yonah. This is Feldheim. Okay, I think they might have changed the cover, but it should say something like Sefer Mishlei Mahadura Menukedes, which means the vowelized version. Pirush Rashi, Rabbeinu Yonah, Girondi, Mitzudas David, Mitzudas Tzion. Okay, so there are 5 superiorities of this version over other ones. I think. Let's just hope that number is right. Number 1, it has the actual text of Mishlei in it, which is useful because not all standalone Mefarshim have the text in it, and you want to be able to carry it with you. Number 2, it is the accurate version of Rabbeinu Yonah. Okay, meaning that there are different manuscripts, and this one has the correct manuscripts as far as I'm concerned. Sometimes even more correct than the Torah from what I've seen. Number 3 is that it has Rashi, Revenu, Rashi, Mitzudas David, Mitzudas Tzion. Okay, so you also have other commentators to look from. Number 4, it has it's heavily footnoted and will refer you to other pesukim or other areas on the same topic that elaborate on it. Number 5, I think there are actually 6 reasons. Number 5 is it has, and this is perhaps the most useful feature in the sense that you can't get this anywhere else. It has a topical index in the back. So you look up any topic in Mishlei, it'll tell you which pesukim talk about it, and then which Rabbeinu Yonahs talk about it, even if the pesukim don't mention it. Let's say this didn't actually happen, but let's say the Rabbeinu Yonah talks about Leitzim in a pasuk that doesn't have anything to do with Leitz. So we might not know about it, but the pasuk, the index will direct you to that. And then the 6th benefit is that, and I think Torah also does this, but I don't know if it's the same, is that here's what the Rabbeinu Yonah commentary looks like. Okay, normal text. But then if it gets to a point where Rabbeinu Yonah on Mishlei didn't comment, but Rabbeinu Yonah on another one of his works comments, it'll bring down that commentary in blocky text. So, for example, here there's no commentary of Rabbeinu Yonah on Mishlei on I don't know what parak this is, Gimel 31, but he does mention it in Shari Tshuva. Or let's say over here also, there's a whole extensive commentary here. Here's one in Mesachas Avos, so it'll draw upon all the works of Rabbeinu Yonah to show you where to look. So that's it's a worthwhile investment. And I think it's, every time I've bought it or had heard it bought, it's very cheap. So definitely a worthwhile investment. Okay, let's get started. That was bad. No. Yeah, I know. Okay, so the thing that I wanted to do is, am I sharing the whole screen, Isaac? Can you see the Word document?
No, I can see Revenu on Leitz.
Okay, so I just shared the wrong thing. Thank you. Okay, so the goal today is to refine our understanding a little bit based on Rabbeinu Yonah. Okay, so the one quality that we have not talked about in the Leitz is the Yoshvei Kranos sichah bateilah thing, the do nothing, sitting on the corner and talking in about nonsense, or whatever you want to translate sichah bateilah. So I found Rabbeinu Yonah on that. First thing I want to do though is just remind you what we learned yesterday. The quality that Rabbeinu Yonah introduced, which we had not talked about explicitly, is what he calls so he said the first call, this is on Rabbeinu Yonah on 122. So first he quotes our pasuk saying that the 2 things that make a Leitz are, that the Leitz stems from the deepest instinctual parts of the personality. Okay, that's haughtiness and malice, okay, or aggression. But then he says the second thing is miprikas ol shamayim prika gemura, a complete casting off of the yoke of heaven. Okay, so I think, and he says, in alav ol hamora, since he doesn't have upon himself the yoke of heaven, ve'ein chitas alakim b'libo, and there's no fear of God in his heart. Alkin libo meshulach l'schok v'lag v'keles. Therefore, his heart is given to jesting and mockery and disgracing. Okay, and that is also what the Rabbeinu Yonah says on the pasuk about the Leitz and his relationship to wine, which we didn't read yesterday, but I just want to reread it here. So he says, Leitz hayayin homesh shechar, Leitz ish hayayin homesh ish shechar. So Leitz is a man of wine, and home is an ish of shechar. Okay, home is a crier out person. Okay, whatever. He says, this is telling you one of the causes that gives rise like developmentally to the trait of leitzanus. So that you can keep away from that. Okay, because it causes something bad. And it says a man of wine is a leitz. Okay, so he needs to explain how this happens. Toledas hayayin, one of the natural effects of wine, lifrok ol haleit, is to cast off the yoke of the heart. The halitzanus, and this quality of leitzanus, hu prikas ha'ol, is a casting off of the yoke. Alkein, therefore, nimshach achar hayayin lifrok ha'ol me'al levavo. Therefore, the leitz will be drawn to wine in order to cast off the yoke from his heart. V'yishlach l'shono l'chol avas nafsho, and to send forth his tongue in whatever he desires. V'ledivrei schok v'lag v'kelas, and in words of jesting, mockery, and shame. So I think this is like what we've been talking. When he says fear of God in the first pasuk, you could learn fear of God in many ways, but I think it's really what we're talking about, of like not wanting to exercise any restraint. Like he has this resistance to being restrained in any way, and wine will encourage that lack of restraint. So if you're an ordinary person and you become a wine addict, or as we say, wino, right? That's the term, I mean, it doesn't have to be wine, but like an alcoholic or an alcohol abuser, you're not even an alcoholic. So then you're going to be feeding that part of yourself that like feels free to not be bound by any semblance of self-restraint. And then if you have these traits of arrogance and haughtiness, they'll get magnified and amplified, and then you'll become a leitz. Okay, so that is this quality that Rabbeinu Yonah introduced. Okay, but now the pasuk where the Rabbeinu Yonah talks about this other thing is the one that caused us the most questions, I think. Bikish leitz chachma v'ayin v'das l'nava naka. The leitz looks for wisdom and it is not there, and knowledge comes easy to the navon. Okay, so I actually didn't make copies of this except for myself, but I guess I have two copies. There's a paper one and there's a book one, whoever wants. Okay. So it is, what pasuk was that? It is on 14:6, which in the Rabbeinu Yonah pages, let's see. Well, actually, telling you the page number is not going to help. Just look for 14:6. Let's see here. Oh, actually, I guess it'll help David because he has the book. Yeah. Page Kuf Lamed Hey. And I guess on the PDF, not on PDF. Yeah, it'll be on page 3, maybe. It's on. Does that make sense? Is it there? Because it's in the middle-ish of the page.
Yeah, the top left, the top middle.
14:6. Or Rabbeinu Yonah page Kuf Lamed Hey. Sorry, probably easier if I had found it and then. Okay. Okay. So Bikesh Leitz Chachma of Ayin V'das Navanako. So our major question was, what is the Leitz doing even looking for Chachma, right? Yeah. Still no luck. You want me to find it? Here, easier.
Depends on the inner side of the page has the parak, and the other side is no. Like, wait, it's not gonna help.
Okay. So here's Rabbeinu Yonah. Bikesh Leitz Chachma v'ayin. Haleitz hu ha'osik b'sichos bateilos. So the leitz is someone who is involved in. How do you guys translate sichah bateilah? That's a commonly used phrase. Batel means like no.
Idle chatter.
Yeah, idle chatter is a good one, right? Idle chatter, not IDOL, but IDLE, right?
Pointless conversation.
Pointless conversation is also good. I think pointless is closer to the word batel, right? Idle means like you're well, okay, actually, no, it depends, right? Because idle means you're not doing anything, and it's a quality of the converser, whereas pointless conversation really is a statement about the conversation. So I guess we'll have to see what sichah bateilah is. So we'll have that as a question. What is frivolous? Frivolous conversation is more like kalus rosh, I think. That's what frivolity is like kalus rosh, okay? Which might be related, but that's, I would say sichah bateilah. Okay, v'gam also mislotzet ala brios v'loeg al ma'asem v'divrehem. He also mocks people, scoffs at people and mocks their actions and their words. Really interesting, by the way. Here he defines the late as someone who is osik in sichah bateilah, And by the way, he also mocks people. It's like, it's a strange, like, characterization of the Leitzim in terms of like the sichah bateilah is like the main thing. Yeah.
Just like a side point.
Yeah.
Based on our definition, it sounds like the Leitzim is like one of the strongest characters in Mishlei. It seems like really hard to be a Leitzim. And it's like
Yeah, it is. I think a good way to say it is that a Leitzim is definitely one of the worst people in Mishlei, but he's also one of the most specific. Okay, meaning that there are many forms of Russia that of being a Russia, and I think that like you're probably going to find more Rashaim than Leitzim.
Yeah, it's like it's hard to be a Leitzim.
Yeah, it's very specific, right? Yeah, it's a good observation. Yeah. Oh, that reminds me of another methodology point I wanted to make. Yesterday, when Isaac said that he knows he was giving, I was asking for an example, and he gave an example of a Leitzim that he knows or knew. I don't know. It's a good strategy in Mishlei to have real world candidates in mind when you're talking about this, and the candidate who you choose is going to shift as you learn more about the personality. But what Mishlei is only as good as it is grounded in reality. So what I think is useful to do is, let's say we're learning about Leitzim, so find someone who has these qualities who you know of in real life, and keep them like on the front burner as you're learning the pasuk, and constantly go back and forth between idea and then comparing it to the reality, and then comparing that to the idea and the reality. And if you need to switch up your examples, then that's fine. But the more grounded in reality and in real world examples your Mishlei archetypes are based on, then the more real the ideas will be to you, and the more readily you'll be able to spot them in real life. So I just wanted to highlight that. Okay, so
the reason I said that I knew him, is that this person is no longer a Leitzim.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Is it impossible to not be a Leitzim? Isn't that one of the criteria?
Well, a Leitzim you cannot change from the outside, but he can change. And also, it's another thing also is it is possible, depending on what stage of life you're at, it's possible to outgrow it. Okay, and I have a specific person in mind. We had a student in Shalhevet who, we always like have a rigorous profile of them before they come into the school, based on like their middle school history. So this person was known as a bully in middle school, and we were warned about her, but we were also told that she actively wanted to change when she went into high school. And I never saw any bullying qualities from her at all. And I guess it just like it hit the right, like some people just like they're stuck in a certain mode with certain social groups, but if you change the social group, then that could like reset the the personality. And you can outgrow it also. Like I think a lot of people are more arrogant when they're younger. Like younger you are, you do think you know everything, you think you know better than other people. And so that gaiva plus like a certain go-getter, ambitious personality can manifest as a Leitzim, and then as life beats you over the head, you might become more and more like humble, and then your Leitzim will go away. Yeah, so that's an important point though, that the Leitzim can't change. It's just very hard. Oh, if we finish this today, by the way, I want to go back and read what I told you outside about how the Leitzim changes, because that's in the packet now also. Okay, fine. So this trait, so this trait of sichah bateilah, of osik b'sichah bateilah, of him being involved in idle chatter or pointless conversations, is impossible without a negation of fear of God and a casting off of the yoke of heaven. Now that's a terrifying statement, because you look at a Leitzim who's going around mocking people, and you're like, this guy has no shame, has no fear. But you look at a bunch of people who are just like engaged in talking about nonsense, you don't automatically see those as stemming from the same quality. And he is saying that they do stem from the same quality. It's scary, yeah. Okay. So these two midos that we mentioned, namely one who engages in pointless conversation and then mockery, scoffery, marchikos es adam min hachachma. They both distance a person from wisdom. Ki ein hachachma nimtzeis biyoshvei kranos uva bateilah. This is interesting, because chachma is not found in people who sit on corners. Can we come up with is there a modern equivalent of sitting on corners?
Bars.
I was thinking bars, and bars is a place where Leitzim hang out, right? But I'm trying to think of I think it's is there one that's a more common analogy? Because I feel like there are people like this who are not necessarily in bars, but they still are like the equivalent of Yoshua Kronos.
The one train station.
You got the subway.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
like let's say, for example, when I was in public high school, and this is just like an example that comes to my mind, there were kids who were like this, but who were not who were not involved in any pursuits. Like they weren't like athletes, they weren't involved in music, they weren't involved in art, and they weren't nice. They weren't involved in academics. They just like sat in the halls or sat on the bleachers and just like bash people, So that's like, those are the bleachers of my public high school is like the corners of Rabbeinu Yonah's world. I'm looking for I think maybe the equivalent, and I said this yesterday, it could be that the person who just like is the anonymous internet troll who just sits in front of, sits on his phone or sits in front of his computer and just like bashes people in various forums, like the, all the hateful like YouTube comment stuff, I think like that might be one of the modern equivalents. And you can do this on any type of social media. I'm just saying like YouTube, because that's like a handy example.
But he's not
or Twitter.
He's not like an editorialist, is he?
No, he's not. He's just, well, what do you mean by editorialist?
The one who just like has strong opinions.
So he does probably have strong opinions, but they're probably not grounded in knowledge. They're probably grounded in opposition to people who he looks down upon, But I think like when people say how toxic of an environment Twitter is, then I think that it's made toxic due to people who do this, who just like don't do anything with life other than like going on Twitter and bashing people. I think that might be like the modern equivalent that I'm looking for. Okay, fine. So yeah. Oh, there's another point. Uva ohove bateilah. So this is another thing. Okay, and maybe I'm just being influenced by my need to redeem myself. That we all engage in sichah bateilah, okay? But to me, the fact that he calls these people ohave bateilah, that they love like pointless things or idleness, to me means that there is a difference between like sichah bateilah as a category of conversation versus sichah bateilah as an occupation of people who love doing nothing. Okay, in other words, the fact that he calls this person an osek b'sichah bateilah and an ohev bateilah means that we're talking about not so much a category of conversation like in Hilchos Deos, this is what you should and shouldn't talk about. We're talking about it more in terms of this is what you do with your time, right? You don't do anything productive with your time. You're not learning, you're not doing work, you're not like, involved in like contributing to society, you're not like cultivating a hobby, whatever, you're just like doing nothing, Yeah. And again, I obviously do want to save myself from like being in the category of sichah bateilah, but I do think that's what I think it's a fair read of the Rabbeinu Yonah, unless we're all projecting.
I'm not going to fight against.
Okay. V'chein lo timatze rak balomdim b'mora v'lo b'leitzanim hamferim yira. Okay, now he transitions into something a little out of left field. Okay, he says you will not find this quality of the qualities of Yoshve Kranos and Ove Bateilah in people who learn with awe or dread. Lo timate rak balomdim b'mora. Okay, you will only find this quality. There's too many negatives here. V'chein lo timatze rak balomdim b'mora. V'lo b'leitzim. Okay, I don't know how to translate, but I'll say what he means is like if you go to people who learn in awe, you will find attachment to chachma. But if you find leitzim who like try to get rid of their yira, then you'll find these qualities of like Yoshei Kranos and Ove Bateilah and distancing you from chachma. Okay, so here's where this is where he makes a switch. V'chein amru Rabbeinu Zal. Chazal say chachma shalamarti ba'af hi amdali. The chachma that I learned. Do you remember how we translated off here? It was not anger. Okay, so this is a statement that the Rambam makes when he says, when he criticizes, is that a power flickering?
Yeah.
Okay, weird, it's not windy anymore, but The Rambam in Hilchos Talmud Torah, when he's talking about how to get the highest level of Torah, which is the Kesser Shel Torah, he talks about people who learn while they're eating, which is one of the reasons why I don't, as a principle, like when people eat in shiur, but exceptions are fine. He says drinking is fine. Yeah. Wine, no. He says, in Divrei Torah, this is Rambam in Hilchos Talmud Torah, looks like Yud, it looks like Gimel Yud, maybe. In Divrei Torah miskamin b'misha merape atzmo aleihin. Oh, no, so that's not it. Oh, yeah, this is it. In Divrei Torah miskamin b'misha merape atzmo aleihin. Words of Torah do not persist in someone who is lax over them or loose over them. And not people who learn amid idun is like pampering, or like fancy, like you picture the person like on the couches with the grapes, and like servants fanning them. People learn out of idun or out of eating and drinking. You have to be killing yourself over Torah. Okay, in the olden days, or nowadays we say breaking your teeth over Gemara. Back then they would just go straight up and say you got to kill yourself over Torah, right? Now that would be attached for the trigger warnings. And afflict your body constantly. And not letting your eyes rest. Not letting yourself doze off. Amru Chachamim derech remez. The Chachamim say by way of allusion. This is not pshat. Zos haTorah Adam ki yamus ba'ohel. So the pshat is this is the law of the man who dies in a tent, and that's talking about tumas meis. But then the drasha is this is the Torah. Adam ki yamus ba'ohel. Man when he dies in the tents. Okay. Torah only persists in someone who kills himself in the tents of Chachma. So this is what Shlomo Melech means when he says, if you make yourself lax on a day of distress, your power will be narrowed. Okay, I don't know what pshat is that. And then he quotes our thing. In Koheles it says, even still, my chachma remained with me. But then the drasha is chachma shalamarti ba'af amdali, the chachma that I learned in a state of af, which af literally means anger. I think we translate it as like agitation or like discomfort that persisted with me. So the point of these chazals that the Rabbeinu Yonah is quoting is if you just want to like lounge around while you learn, and like be in like a 5-star setup. And have like everything perfect and like you're perfect, then you're not going to get chachma. But if you learn in the old YBT building where the walls themselves tore your clothing and it was a haunted house, then like and you make these compromises of like living in not comfort and you still dedicate yourself to Torah. So then your chachma will remain with you. Yes. That's what the Rambam is saying. He's saying that when you say having both, meaning having
like having a comfortable space, nice basement and
yeah. So the way Chazal talk about it. Well, okay, let me remind you here. We're talking about the highest levels of chachma. It doesn't mean that everyone should try to do this. Like if you let's say like need a comfortable, nice place to like learn, and otherwise you're not going to learn, then definitely go for the comfortable, nice place. But it's saying if you want to reach the heights of Torah, then you can't make excuses of I can only learn when I like am in the right like setting, or I can only learn when I got a good night's sleep.
It's not a compromise. It's what someone has.
If it's you mean like let's say let's say like you're really rich and you can afford this and you have a nice base midrash or whatever, right? Yeah. So the way we learned it, I think the way we learned it was that there's two qualities here. One is you have to be willing to learn even if you don't have those things. So let's say you have a person who could do without it, but then has it. So then you're good. You've checked off that box. But then there's also a factor of you have a certain amount of psychological energy that is very easily siphoned off by involvement in physical and psychological pleasures. And there is a threat that if you are only learning Torah while you're sipping scotch and smoking cigars, then you're not fully involving your energy in Torah. And so I would say for that, then there's going to be a limit to how much you can be involved in Torah while you are like pampering yourself, and there is a middle spot, meaning like, I think being on a comfortable couch with nice lighting is not going to siphon off your energy like eating and drinking and cigaring, So like, I think there's like a middle ground. Yeah, David?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I think like, for example, like what we said for like not giving sleep to your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
We said was that not like, the Rambam himself talks about how it's important to get enough sleep, like to be healthy.
8 hours.
Yeah.
Still true. Yeah.
Yeah. And like that's midoche Hashem.
Yeah.
So I think what we said was that it's not giving sleep to, like kind of like to your eyes to decide. It's not like whatever feels best for your eyes. It's whatever like you sleep the amount that your mind tells you is
in other words
best.
In other words, the sleep is dictated by actual need, by biological need, but not by love of sleep. Yeah, or certainly not by sleep as an escape. Right. That's another genre of pesukim in Mishlei about how people use sleep to escape from their from reality. Okay, so that's the first chazal that Rabbeinu Yonah quotes. The second one is also strange. V'od amru zarok mara batalmidim. You should instill dread in your talmidim. Okay. So this is something that we also talked about in the Rambam, where like it seems like that has kind of gone out of fashion, that if you do that, like people are very sensitive these days, like in my day, then this was like this is still I was like on the tail end of this, especially with Rabbi Man, and like there's still certain elements of, we were talking about this when we were talking about this at a Shabbos meal.
Fire and brimstone.
No, this is a different kind of dread. We were talking about this at Tomorrow in Isaiah's about the harshness of when you get your svara rejected by Rav Pesach. There is there's different levels of cutting, and so like that method is still used among Talmidei Chachamim, but I think it's not standardized anymore because there's like an awareness that you could turn people off to Torah if you do this. But it still might be relevant to our idea. And then the third one is related. Kol Talmid Chachamim she'ein sifsosav notvos mar tikavena, which I think translates to any Talmid Chacham whose lips do not drip with bitterness. Again, meaning like a certain, the English word, here's a cool word. Wait, hold on. Vitriol, right? So vitriol, it has a means cruel and bitter criticism, but the original meaning was sulfuric acid. Like vitriol was actually like a substance. So we would translate it as any Talmid Chacham whose lips don't drip with sulfuric acid, acid tongued people have that, should be burned. Which I think this is a Talmid Chacham. I think if I remember correctly, the context in which this is invoked is in terms of the Rebbe Talmid relationship, that you have to have there's again like the Rav Pesach example, or like the Rav, like there's a certain biting like thing to it. Now, again, without going into the whole sugya of Talmud Torah, the question is, what does this have to do with Leitzim, right? And he's contrasting it with saying you have Leitzim who love being involved in idle chatter because they also love just doing nothing with their lives. And the opposite of that is Chachamim. And that indicates a breaking of the yoke of fear of heaven, which we're taking as like self-restraint. Okay, and then the opposite of that is Chachamim who learn in a state of like discomfort, whose Rebbeim instill like a certain dread or reverence into them, and whose Rebbeim have like sulfuric acid lips. So like, what is that? Why does he have to bring in these statements about learning, and also what's the pshat here? He doesn't explain the basic question we had, Bikesh Leitz Chachma V'ayin, that the Leitz looked for Chachma and didn't find it. Seems like he's taking it that if the Leitz were to look for Chachma, then he wouldn't find it, but the Leitzim don't look for Chachma. Sounds like he's saying that they don't look for Chachma, And like the sense I'm getting here is, like, I think why did we say that the Leitz might look for Chachma? Did we say why he might do it, or we just said why he can't find it? So yeah,
like he might be like willing to give it a try, where he feels like he's giving it an honest effort, but he's not, because he's approaching it from a Leitz perspective,
right?
But like he like I think a person could see how like there might be like benefit from that, I think basically I think that there's this like universal recognition that there is some value in chachma, unless a person has like specifically rejected it.
Mm-hmm. That's possible. Let me hear what Chaim's going to say, and then I have my own answer. Yeah, Chaim?
Yeah, so I had two ideas. One would be why the Leitzim would be there, and then two would be why Rabbeinu Yonah is talking about all these things.
Sure.
One was that maybe he's looking for some sort of guidance.
Yeah.
And he's like, these people are chachamim, and people look up to them, and maybe I'll go to them. And then Rabbeinu Yonah is bringing in all these like chazal or whatever about like what a Talmud Chacham like needs to be like, and that's what the Leitzim sees. And he just sees like this guy who's just like the sharp tongue, and he's like rebuking his students, or he's like shutting down their svaras, and then he's like, this is chachma, and then he's like, nah, and he doesn't like
I see.
He doesn't see like the reason the Rav is doing that. He doesn't understand why he's doing it, and that's what he sees, and that's what turns him away.
Okay, all right. I think that's I definitely like the shot of the Rabbeinu Yonah. I think it's in line with what you were saying, that the Leitzim is only going to see. He's going to edit out things that he doesn't like. And the other feature of editing is bolding and underlining, that he's going to be like, his emphasis is going to be, his attention is going to be drawn to the features that make him feel criticized, from the Chachamim. Yeah, David?
If I may say along with what Chaim was saying, then particular to this personality, where he's someone that has these very quick impressions and that's it.
Yeah.
So when he sees those sharp tongues or anything like that, and that doesn't fit in line with what he, like his narrative and his perspective, how things are supposed to go.
Yeah.
But then this also, it sounds like he's giving a great definition of how we get chachma.
Yeah.
More than just more than just that it is like a corpus of knowledge or that kind of thing, but like how you get to it.
Yeah.
And the Leitzim, definitely his way that he likes to operate is like the opposite direction of.
Okay, right. So in other words, so Rabbeinu Yonah is bringing out, and by the way, okay, I'll say it. Rabbeinu Yonah is bringing out the fact that there's one type of person who can't get chachma because he doesn't have what it takes. There's another type of person who can't get chachma because his whole personality is antithetical to the midos that get you chachma. And that's what the Rabbeinu Yonah is bringing out. As an aside, the reason why he might be going in this direction even is because the second half of the pasuk is talking about how a navon, a person of understanding, it's easy for him to get das. And we're not going to do this part of the pasuk, but Rabbeinu Yonah goes and says that there's chachma, which is the lowest level, then tevuna, and then das is the highest level. So it is saying how, it's a good support of what you're saying, that the Leitz's disposition is antithetical even to chachma, which is the lowest level. The navon his disposition is favorably disposed to das, which is the highest level. So it's like extreme opposites. What I was thinking about why the Leitzim might, so both Isaac and then to a lesser extent Chaim were saying how like the Leitzim will be drawn to chachma for, let's put it this way, good reasons. That either chachma like has a good reputation, or like chachamim might be able to help him. I think the Leitzim are drawn to chachma as ammo for their leitzanos. Okay, in other words, they're bali gaiva, right? And chachma gives you superiority, so they want to be smarter than everyone. Okay, and in certain areas, it could give them actual ammo, like in the realm of. Again, you see this with anti-religious Leitzim, like the people who are like bitter about Judaism. They will like comb through and like find, like the Rambam second group in terms of midrashim, will find statements that make Chazal look ridiculous and then use those to mock Chazal. So they'll be willing to look for the chachma. And remember, chachma means received knowledge, not like in-depth knowledge. They'll look for like knowledge they can use as weapons against people to arm them with litzanos. People do this in politics, that there are people who love just like, whether they're on the left or on the right, they just love bashing the other side, not because they actually want to understand the principles behind politics or like how things could be better. They just want to use just want only knowledge that can help them to attack the other side. I think that's why the Leitzim is interested in chachma. If I had to be down the chavskus, there is one more motive for the Leitzim to look for chachma, which is when it's too late. Okay, so this is in Mishlei Perak Aleph, the pasuk that we were doing. How long? I'm just going to say this in English. How long, O you naive simpletons, will you love your naive simplicity? And Leitzim desire latzon, and ksilim hate knowledge. Return to my rebuke. This is a Chachma talking. Return to my rebuke. Behold, I will express to you my spirit. I will make my words known to you. So Chachma is like trying to like bring in these guys. Okay. Then he says, Chachma says, I've called out. Because I've called out and you have refused, I extended my hand and there was no one to listen. And you rejected all my advice, and my rebuke you did not desire. I too will laugh at you, at your misfortune. I will mock you when your dread arrives. When your fear and your misfortune, when your fear comes like a holocaust and your misfortune like a storm, when it comes upon you, and when distress and suffering come upon you, then you will call me and I will not answer. Then you will look for me, but you will not find me. Because you hated knowledge and fear of God, you did not choose. You did not desire my counsel, and you rejected all my rebuke. They will eat the fruit of their ways, and they will be satisfied with their own advice. So, in other words, when does the Leitz look for Chachma? When he gets the consequences, and he's like, okay, like now I want advice, but no, it's too late, So that's like the most Dan Kapskus I can give the Leitz. That there is a time when he genuinely looks for Chachma, but it's when it is undeniable that he should have used Chachma in making decisions, and he failed to do that because he rejected it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so what idea do we get about the Leitz now that we've done this? And I still feel like there is something we need to get from this Ohave bateilah, that they love idleness or doing nothing, and therefore they're engaged in sichah bateilah, in idle conversation. And I'm specifically like curious about the fact that there are now two categories of speech that they engage in: mockery, lashon hara, like aggressive speech, and then also like nonsense, pointless speech. So what's the relationship between the two?
I feel like they kind of go together, like kind of like my mental picture of like what people are doing when they're just sitting around and talking. Mm-hmm. Is like that they'll basically they'll be sitting around and like talking about people,
Yeah, right. Yeah, I also have that same intuition. Yeah, Sean.
Okay, just to add a new dimension.
Yeah.
Right. So we know that he needs to have this image of himself.
Yeah.
Right? And he needs, in some ways, validation externally for his for himself. So I would say, like, what is a characteristic of like meaningless talk? Right. So it's not necessarily that he's going to look good. Right, but it's very hard to look bad in meaningless talk.
That's interesting. It's a safe refuge from his.
Yeah. So it's a way to like preserve his image while not putting his image like at stake. Right.
Okay, that's good.
Enter a conversation where like you might not be the most knowledgeable,
right,
and you're trying to learn, or like you're going to present, like we were saying, like, you enter shiur and you're like going to present the scar, but like your scar might get completely shredded.
Right.
He doesn't want to enter that battlefield because it's too risky and he might lose some of his image.
So that's a good svara, and it's also in line with what Rabbeinu Yonah is saying, which is that both of these are sustained by a casting off of the yoke, that you don't want to submit yourself to a yoke and engaging. So it's not that he is attracted to sichah bateilah for its own qualities, it's that he defaults to sichah bateilah because any other conversation of substance would put him into this realm where he has to like exercise the yoke. Yeah.
Another separate thing.
I also have another separate thing. Yeah.
Okay. So how the Leitz has these similar qualities of, he is one who complains a lot, and the pesukim that we did, I know we did this with Isaac, but the pesukim that we did on someone who complains and how that itself causes that person so much harm just within his complaining.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of these things then also happen to Leitz, where like the whole way that he's operating is through this like complaining, a lot of like finding negative things in other people has that similar way of like complaining about things and also complaining about them.
Yeah, it is interesting that there are no pesukim that pair the Leitz with a complainer, unless there are adjacent pesukim that I missed, that do that, because I agree with you that there's a similarity. I think one of the differences is that the complainer is, compared to the Leitz, the complainer is passive and throwing tantrums at reality, whereas the Leitz is actively throwing off the yoke of reality because he needs to in order to like sustain his self-image, but they are related. The idea I had, this is kind of like just riffing off of what you're saying, is that sichah bateilah does not need any restraint. You can just engage in senseless talk, and there is no need, not just from the concern that I might get shot down or whatever. There's no need to restrain yourself when you're talking about nonsense. You just it's not dictated, since it's not dictated by practicality or chachma, then you could just run your mouth forever and just not have to ever censor yourself or restrain yourself. I just thought of another real world example. Yeah.
I think it also works well within why they're ohavi bateilah.
Yeah.
When there's something around, there's some knowledge that that's you're gonna get in trash for something like that. You feel wrong when you're not involving yourself in or just ideas. But when you're in, if you can, they're trying to avoid that because, and then that's their love of going to the opposite.
Okay, right. That's good also. Right. So that's a good point. Meaning if there's a spectrum, ohove bateilah and ohove malacha, right? Either you love doing nothing or you love doing some sort of actual craft that's productive. So I think the reason why they're turned off to work is because of the same reason Sean was saying, is that when you put yourself out there and are actually trying to achieve success in a certain way, now you're subject to objective standards and to criticisms and to failure and measuring against other people and not being in a position where you're measuring them, and so they're turned off to work also. That's good. Good call there. I have an example and also a show to recommend. I'm only a couple episodes into the show, and I think it's a new show on Netflix, Inventing Anna. Anyone heard of it?
I've seen it.
You've seen that the show? Yeah. So it's basically it's a good Mishleic show. It's about a woman who's very a young woman in her early 20s who's very smart, very attractive, and she basically cons her way into the highest levels of socialite society in New York. Cons people into believing that she is this multimillionaire heiress, this German heiress, who is and she gets a bunch of people to invest in her social club that she's starting. But she's just a very, very good liar. And she plays upon the emotions of all the wealthy members of society. So it's a very good Mishlei thing in the sense of watching what happens to a liar through the framework of Mishlei, but then also these high society, people who have houses in the Hamptons and certain aspects, I'm seeing a new perspective on what certain strata of the five towns is trying to be or actually is, I saw glimmers of this when just in my teaching experience, but I never saw the upper levels of it, that when you're in that world and you're dealing with people who don't have to work for a living and they view themselves as on top of society, what is most of their conversation? It's sichah bateilah and lashon hara and Leitzim and just comparing themselves, making themselves feel superior to other people, So it's a good depiction of that as well. And that I don't know if people use this term anymore, a Jewish American princess type thing of the girls who are really, really rich and really materialistic and just spend all their time in their little cliques and gossiping and making fun of people. That partakes of both qualities of this. Okay, good. So to summarize here, we get from the Leitzim his relation. The main idea is we got his relationship to sichah bateilah and ohave bateilah is that sichah bateilah and ohave bateilah are both refuges for avoiding the type of yoke that they want to avoid and avoiding the need for self-control and avoiding putting themselves into a sphere where they're going to be possibly subject to realizing their own inferiority or their own shortcomings or anything like that. And the opposite trait of that is the people who seek chachma and will put themselves in positions where they'll be shot down and where they'll have to forego certain comforts and in order to devote themselves to chachma. Yeah. Okay, good. Plan for next week. Oh, sorry. First of all, immediate thing. Tomorrow, who is planning on coming to Q&A? One, Isaac?
In person or on Zoom?
On Zoom.
And
in person. Okay, good. All right, so we have enough people to do Q&A. Okay, so we'll plan to do that. And then I haven't confirmed this yet, but there is I don't know if I even mentioned this yet, but my Chavrusa Levi Slomiak wants to give a 2-part shiur on based on his experience in psychology and then applying it to some aspect of Mishlei. And I told him that he could use my Mishlei slot, and I'll be here for the shiur. But I think he wanted to do it next week, but I haven't confirmed with him yet. So just as a teaser, yeah.
In person?
No,
I didn't know you guys were Chavrusa.
Yeah, we've been Chavrusas since 2006, maybe
really
2007, when he was in high school. Speak about one of the biggest successors in Mitzvah Guerrero's Mitzvah. So I was in high school class with his sister Ola, okay, and Levi's like much younger than I am. So I was already in yeshiva for like 4 or 5 years. Levi came to check out yeshiva as a 12th grader, and I was learning Mishlei in the Beis Midrash in the evening, and he was just like not doing anything because he didn't have anyone who he knew. So I was like, "Do you want to learn Mishlei?" And that the rest is history. And then he became one of my top like chavrusas that we are learning and talking about ideas constantly for the last like however many years this is. So it was that's what you never know what can come from one session of learning, and that started like this lifelong close friendship and chavrusa and like intellectual partnership. So yeah,
Cool.
Okay, all right. Talk to you tomorrow or whenever. All right, thanks for coming. Bye.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.